Hi, I'm Njål and welcome to Bite of Bergen. We're gonna walk and talk a bit, and let's start with a bit somber and depressing, you could say, or not, depending on how you feel. So we're here at Laksevåg, and here we're starting off at the cemetery, where amongst other things there are some wartime memorials. And up here we have one of those modern churches. It looks absolutely shite. It has some interesting ideas, but design-wise and shape-wise, it's not very impressive. And as you can see here, next to the church, there's a kindergarten. And next to the kindergarten, there's a cemetery. There's something irony is that religion, childhood and death go next to each other. So due to Norway and being a contrast between the new and old, I do believe the house over here is the old priest abode. Because the priest had to live near the church and had his own housing. And as far as a graveyard go, the older, the more interesting and absurd and ornate the headstones gets. You can tell that these families here are from the time of old. For example, here is a machine master from 1881. So you can tell that depending on the family, the power and their influence, size matters a lot. And the really old ones usually have an entire lot to themselves. I mean, here is one of those white ones with the ornaments. Yeah, sure, there's a lot of interesting ones, but yeah, and just fascinating to take a look at how we've commemorate the dead. Oh, here's one I really find enjoyable. It's a tree on a tombstone. And of course you have the weeping willows, whatever you want to call it. But there's one thing that's always interesting though, is that if you think about it, the modern concept of a graveyard as we know it is really wasteful. What I mean with this is simple. You see all this real estate. It's unfortunately covered in a lot of empty spaces. And the thing with empty spaces is that they're kind of wasted. Not to mention the upkeep and all of the cleaning the place. There's no wonder wartime memorials and such is usually one huge list, because it saves space. Take it how you want, but yeah, it's fun, interesting. Also in the middle of here you have a chapel, a smaller one. You can see contrasted with the more modernistic interpretation. This one is a lot more simple, made of wood and more classical. Yeah, so just as a silly idea had. It has some merits. Since as population keeps increasing, the space decreases. And for all intents and purposes, Facebook will more or less become akin to a digital museum mausoleum, or something, however you pronounce it, which means that it will have so many people who is just listed as no longer among the living, that it will become a list commemorating their life. And I can only assume that depending how far the future is going to go, the idea will be that you just end up with a hall with a booth, and on the booth you have a screen, and you look up the name and you have a display case to add stuff. Yeah, that's more or less what I expect it to be. Don't quote me on that, but yeah. It would at least be a practical solution. Anyways, here we have some nice contrast between new, old and traditional, and not so traditional. So up on the hill, for example, there's a house with a big balcony going all the way around with pillars holding it aloft. And here you can see most of the houses are, well, a lot of the houses are white and red. You see, house color depended really on how popular, on how rich the owner of the house is. Because it seems that red was a lot more exclusive and rich man color than white, which seems to be pretty much just you just put chalk into the mix and make it white. As you know, white is the base for pretty much all paint, you know. Yeah. So I do suppose that red was the one more expensive color, because you usually see it depicted in farms and people that want to stake out a bit. Because all of the worker apartments and housing, they're all just white. So in Bergen you will see a lot of the old traditional houses being simply painted white. But yeah, you can also tell that, for example, this is a bit more modern architecture. While up here you can see the top of something a bit more old. No, a couple of 100 years or decades. It's very subjective. So for example, we can see this is an old style due to the ornaments, decorations. Meanwhile, this is a fairly modern one from the 70s or so. You can also tell from the garden. And the way this place is set up, it's a bit more affluent and well off. It looks exceedingly gorgeous during the summer though. And yeah, here we have as usual, a fun contrast between old, new and in between. Here in Norway we have this term for this called when you have a really big villa on top of a mountain, on top of a hill, that's overly decorated and whatnot. You could call it a crow's castle. A crow castle. But yeah, I have to admit though, I do kind of have a weak spot for these old wooden buildings, especially when you compare it to this concrete monstrosity that is borderline brutalism. And speaking of contrast, Here's a more traditional alpine style construction with the planks at the side of the wall. So you can see this is a lot more affluent house, as in it's older, it cost a lot back in the day, it's maintained and has a lot of room and a garden. That's twice the size of most around here. And of course you have a soccer field, because soccer is really popular in Norway. And here you have a actual crow's nest, because birds are clever like that. So here you can get a good image of the broadcasting mast for the cell phone mast, new, old, and everything in between. But I already said that, so I digress. But that's why I enjoy walking through cities like this. Even though I am not always agree on modern architecture, I can admit that once you combine new, old, and nature, the contrast is sublime. So let's keep on going further down this road. And so here you can see yellow house with more of those balcony, big balcony. That's probably a very, 60s or 70s or so. Then you have a clothes collection box from Fretex. Then you have a magpie. Being a magpie, hoping there's something interesting in the box it's picking apart. And over here we have a terminal by the sea, Acacia, guidance for generation upheads, IT with the meaning. And yeah, you can hear the birds chirping in the background and the magpies communicating. And here you can see this hill here. It's an interesting, beautiful contrast really. Also, if you really want inspiration for a game or any such thing, you should really look at nature, where how people live, and combine that. For example, you have this very interesting wall. It's still a wall, but interesting nonetheless. Or the more intense heavy beach, I think it's beach hedge, something like that. They're a lot more beautiful and green, but they just call it bøk. So bøkehekk. You can also tell anyways, feels a bit rude trying to talk when right next to people, you know. So let's not do that while walking. Anywho. Here you can go down to the sea. Here's Oldernesveien. I have no idea what it means, but Probably some old word for old. I don't know. Never try to understand the way things are named. It will drive you shit insane. Ooh. Here somebody has turned a pot into put an old piece of machinery onto a pot there display. And of course here is one of those you could have attributed to funkies, but it's a bit too modern for that. A bit too modern. Anywho, aside from looking at how other people live on the surface level, we now get down to the dock districts again, this time on the opposite side of the fjord, Bergen fjord, and here it's a cat. Yes, it's indeed a cat. A scary cat, probably for the best. So over here in the distance there is a warehouse. Due to the amount of concrete is probably left by the Germans. And of course here down by the sea, a Bergen Turbo. They deal with, vehicles. Here we have the Bergen Climbing Center where you can go to climb. Without having to hit a mountain wall and hope you don't fall off. You can tell the building is fairly... this building has been around for a long while, because it has that nature stone gravel plating on a wall, and some of the runny liquid black liquid you can see. Essentially what happens when the ceiling material in between started to loosen up due to rain and slowly but surely pouring down. And then here we have fix your wheels or store them. And this is one of those typical transformator boxes. It serves as in between when it comes to electrical grid. Iberman import, roofing, rehabilitation, scaffolding. Okay then. And here you have those modern row houses. They are very nice buildings and all, unless you want to deal with what you call it. Moving furniture up the stairs. Why? Because it's 5 stories tall, a lot of stairs, and in all likelihood there is no elevator. And over here you have a industrial warehouse complex. It's always a bit fun to see all of the stuff stacked in the windows. Oh, and here is Bergen water. And here's a car again. And a speed bump, or a lazy cop as they call it. Meanwhile, over here on the right hand side, we have a high-rise, or at least something akin to that, which actually is more likely to have an elevator. Staircases and tall buildings is why IKEA became so popular. because you finally had a way to get the sofa through the door and the bed. Odin strength lifters. And here we have the German World War II submarine bunker. To say what you want about Roman concrete never expiring, I'm pretty sure this German concrete monstrosity is going to last a couple of 100 years as well, due to limestone curing the surface and it being mostly concrete, rebar and hard work from the locals, most likely. You know, the locals, they took and where the other locals took and punished after the war due to, you know, revenge and like, taking their anger out on someone or something. But yeah, you can see this thing is a magnificent building made of solid concrete and rebar. And unlike some parts of the world, they clearly did not skimp on the material and the qualities of this thing. Probably survived a bomb or two. It's currently being used by the army, don't know for what, never been here inside. And here is a very amusing detail. You see the marks here. That means somebody has probably had a crane or something tall on top of a truck and accidentally hit the surface. This means that they knocked off pieces. So yeah, as you can say, the U-boat bunker laksevåg military location. You can't take photos inside, and for good reason, so we're not going to do that. But yeah, this building here itself is interesting. There's a dry dock and a holding facility for a submarine pen. And over here, they're starting at Laksevåg Center. It's one of those places where you go to buy everything you need in one spot. And as we get over here, you get to this concrete company that has a really brilliant design idea. And what would that be? They have their leather carved in cast in concrete. Because the company is called Ölen Concrete or Ölen Betong. And what do you do? You make a concrete Ö. It's one of those exclusive Norwegian letters. That is an O with a line through it. O. So instead of O you get Ö. Clamp on ultrasonic intelligent sensors. Ooh. I don't know exactly what they mean with that. But I wouldn't surprise me it has to do with the deep sea sonar or something akin to that. And over here we have a parking garage, where cargo delivery, and now we're gonna go over to past a wood reseller, a carpenter store called Extra Large Build or Big XL Big. And it's a bit interesting because the logo itself is shaped like a 90-degree ruler, and which means that It's very indicative of the place. And yeah, I can smell the fresh wood, laminated wood and all of that. So yeah, you need to do refurbishing at home, like replacing those pillars at old beneath the balcony. This is where you go. And here is a Rema 1000 and a official building thingy. It means it's a food store for groceries. Meanwhile, if we keep following the road over here, we'll see more of the dock area. Now, up here, there's a small place for children to play, which is very important. But on top of here, there is one of those overly dramatic bronze figurines you will find all over the place, which are more or less symbolize one thing or another. I don't know exactly what, but that I'll find out when you go next to it, usually. Oh, a funeral parlor. Yeah, that is expensive. And here someone has painted the wall pink. Naka takeaway. Yeah. It's in memory of all who died during the war. And as most figurines in Bergen, it's a naked human. And here we get down to dock area again. And this is where things get interesting. A bit more interesting. I can't do much to say much about the U-boat bunker because I need to look up more information, and I can't really get many good pictures because it's in a military facility. But here we have the classical shady dock area you see in movies where sketchy exchange takes place. So here somewhere you have those old reddish brick houses. And they go for very long distances. Of course, we are quite far up and it's a long way down, so there's that. Also, there's a thing called hostile architecture. So here is a staircase with metal sliders on it, in order to get things with wheels up and down easier. Yeah. Don't expect anyone with a wheelchair to take that trip. Oh yeah, here you can see a bit of an interesting contrast again. Because here you can see the buildings are a lot more worn and torn in the paint job. It is much less taken care of. So this due to this place being more heavily lived, houses being tighter together, and depending on who lives in the house. After all, somebody needs to maintain the thing. And you have 5 people living in the same apartment, there's usually never much of an agreement on who is going to do it. Anyways, now here is a thing I really love. You see this old warehouse here? Now that's a gameplay level and a half. You have things on the roof, things on the wall, things on the side. And that's just it. Just a really interesting old set piece. A lot of charm and personality. Would definitely be interesting to make a 3D rendition of, or use it as a video game prop. Yeah, something you could definitely find in Gears of War. Maybe not Gears of War, but all aboard in different games. So yeah, I need to take this place and turn it into location in my comic project. So yeah, that's what I need to do. I need to make an interesting industrial dock area. Even though shipping on water shipping on a space colony is a bit weird. So still, it's cool for a video game inspiration, if nothing else. You don't get more authentic details than all metal, all concrete stone chimneys covered in concrete that's not been used for decades or more, with moss and grass on top. That's the one thing I really love when nature takes root in the places left by man. And here is a bit of a fun thing. There used to be a staircase, but then they built a wall. No, there's just a staircase with plants growing on it. And there's a money I can't reach. Oh yeah, so you can see the interesting fire escape level, right? You start here on the roof, you go down, run across here, then jump down there. Then you have half of a industrial inspiration level. Oh yeah. What? I am a scenario and video game designer by heart, and I love a good level design. And love a good game. So I'm always looking for inspiration. So now we're getting down to another bit more historical part of this place, or at least older. And since it's Sunday, it's a lot easier to get a closer look at this location. Oh, somebody tore the hell out of that, the door. So yeah, here is the dock area. I get some level inspiration later. Ooh, here's a huge ass old cannon that's on display. Yeah, somebody thrown trash into the barrel. And that's a boyo. And here, as you can see, this is a dry dock, because it's shaped like a ship. And it has lots of equipment going on, and here is an actual floating hotel that's in for maintenance. That's really cool, to be honest. That could be a level and a half itself. A floating hotel in a dry dock, and what is the goal? You need to flood the place, and take the hotel and float away on the waves. And so yeah, despite this being a heavily trafficked warehouse district, there is a lot of houses here. And here you can see that this one is quite old. Johnson property, Horsteins Street. So you can see they have more pillars and more arches with heavy ornamentation. And this long row house over this long house over here is probably an old place where people gathered. So yeah, this place is a very commercial and industrial district with a lot of old history and new buildings mixed in between. Oh, and here's a magpie and a crow. They're having intense discussion. And here we have a hairdresser. And also apparently so everything, and next to the dresser you have a place where you can play games, playing lotto and grab ice cream. And here, it's a wall mural. Also in this building on the other side, forgot to mention there's a maker space there here in Bergen. And here is a wall mural and Wolverine skewering the Twitter logo. I don't know what. Oh yes, and I made this interesting intense K logo. And you can tell that this building is fairly old due to the windows on top and the wall ornamentation. Not to mention the entrance. And here is another hairdresser. Here it says Alven and Laksevåg Red Cross, the ferry hall. So yeah. Oh, here is a place where you go to gamble, smoke and eat the ice cream and have a coffee, especially on a Sunday. And speaking of old, here it's another fairly old building, at least kinda, with very interesting entrances at the top. Here's at Sandvik Play, modern outdoor environment and play sports. And here is, they call it School Street. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a school here before, like the building you see on top of there. But that's quite modern. Oh, wait, never mind. Is this a school? That's the... Oh, sorry about that. Bergen County, Laksevåg Old School, raised in 1896 as Damsgård School. The schoolyard towards Damsgård Road was an earlier main lane through Laksevåg, and it was refurbished into a housing complex in 2016. Urban Turløype Utidor and O. Interesting. Aptly named. And here is more ornamentation, and it's dated to 1890. So yeah, now we are in territory of quite a while before the First World War. Here's one of those older massage parlors. They are a very common place around the Bergen. Ooh, lecture team. Registered installation. Installer, I suppose. Flexit service. You're an electrician. So, here's an all of the old worker buildings. See, this is a very old location for people living and staying. And over here, another hairdresser used to drop in. Damsgård Almenningen. This is an interesting part. You see, this is really all, it's a balcony, curved, with a fancy glass door. And fancy glass tiles around the door. Sure, they're still in use, but they are not used very often. But you can tell the building is also in dire need of some repair, and some has been done, but more could be done with a big job. And here's a really excited child. So anyways, here is an extra is another grocery store. And here you can see one of those old 1800 buildings, I suppose, because of the ornamentation and the round window on top. This thing here is clearly not that old, but it's at least green, has some color. And of course here down we have a pier area. And here it says something about this church dock. I'm not sure what this round concrete building is supposed to. This red stone building is, but it has a curved door. That's kind of cool. But yeah, that's like annoying. Oh well, everybody has the right to be here. So here is an old ticket booth, I think. Honestly, I am not entirely sure. But they have a coffee machine and some sinks, so more like a communal sit down and have a coffee place. It's an old booth. Laksevåg for everyone. And a whole evening about the city development in the possibilities part of the city. And Damsgård. So yeah, it's an old booth. I find this one incredibly fascinating, as it's so stark contrast to everything else around here. Now let's see what this placard says. The youth, house of the youth, or juvenile. Yeah, there's a lot of old newspaper clippings from and stuff from different ages. And of course, over here we have one of those light archer brigade uniform-clad children. With so yeah, it's a tradition where some children march and play drums, and then they do a military-style march to the beating of a drum. I made a video about it, but you will recognize it by the hitting of sharp drums. And here you have an old church. Yet again, it has some simple stained glass windows with typical religious motif, and here we have a bird, the pigeon, holy ghost, a heart. But this door is very beautiful. This is supposed to be St. Paulus bow. Just look at this door. You can tell that the church used to be very affluent and rich. Laksevåg Church, 1874 and to 75. Wood ship, old church, new Baroque style, 1919 to 1935. The congregation house was raised in the same period, and the side buildings are from 1975. Unfortunately, I'm at the time of the day where traffic is starting to pick up, so we get interrupted a lot. But you can tell this is an old location. Living and work. Oh no, not living, but it says work. Anyways, it's a very beautiful entrance nonetheless. And as you can see, I really like the pillars. So I suppose I conclude that around 1850 or upwards, pillars were very popular on wooden buildings. On white wooden buildings. And here we get down to Laksevåg Museum. As in, here are some old buildings kept intact to highlight the past. So that's why you have a couple of old buildings that are just museum pieces. Now here's a blast from the past. You can see here, if I can get the polarization to work, is it's a museum of old style and stuff from the past. For example, this candy licorice machine, espresso. Yeah, still, it's a lot of old school. You can also tell that the door and the wall decoration is just immaculate as always. And here is an old candy, typical Norwegian candy collection. And the diploma ice, the diary cream ice. And yeah, here is another very old building that is just a museum piece. It's called Sognehuset. It was built in Ytre Sogn in 1800. So yeah, it's a recreation of a house the family took with them when they left. And yeah, and here are some opening times. There's specific days through the months. So yeah, it's not always open, but when it is, it's very possible to take a trip inside. So yeah, this is also the tables are decorated and everything. Yeah, it's an interesting set. Here's Breivikhuset. It's another one of those museum pieces that you can probably find out more information if I have the time to look it up. But here we get to some even more interesting parts. Here's a kindergarten. This is a giant museum building. I don't know what its original purpose was, but Yeah, it's here nonetheless. So here, I'm getting even older. Pakterboligen, Helgeplassen. So yeah, most of these locations... Ooh, there's a loom. So most of these buildings are really dedicated to different parts of the country, it seems. And you can see it's getting more traditional once you start stacking stones to make a wall. And here is the forge. You can see cast iron hinges and everything. And here's what you call a potato cellar or earth cellar. You know, you keep things cool and humid. And yeah, it seems to have been an old farm building, honest. Yeah, it is an old farm building. It has some cool wooden railing. That's a nice detail. Yeah, I think this has to do with some waterworks of some sort. I suspect it has to do with the regulation of the stream. And this was an actual industry building place. As you can see here, you have this facility. And then you have running water, so it's probably they're probably connected. I need to look up more information of that. But right now it's a museum. And here you can see the water going under the bridge and down here. To the other side of these old recreation of buildings used as a museum piece. And since it's a traditional Norwegian building, you have a chimney on top and a lead on the sides to prevent water leak. Laksevåg. Oh yeah, the toilet. Das is a local way to say toiletry. Oh, yeah, and here you can see the water running down. It's a bit still before it keeps going down here. Oh, and here is the Breivikhuset. Let's just get a quick look at what these old stuff has to say. This house was originally part of a Nøstet in Bergen. Ah, yes. So essentially, yes, that's the logic. They took these houses from elsewhere and relocated them over here. Right, that makes sense. And here is another cool set piece that is definitely good for game inspiration. So what we have here is a giant cable, giant machinery meant to coil a cable. And it was probably powered by water. Probably. I'll judge on the location, but since it's a museum piece, likelihood of that is that this was original location is anything but certain. But it's interesting, you can see the weights on the side. It's all very rusted, but you can see how incredibly complicated and intense the machinery is. It's not much for it. I'm going to collect a bottle. And here you have a parking guard. Everyone's favorite. Oh wait, no it's not. Somebody's gonna get a ticket. Somebody got a ticket. Glad it's not me. So yeah, you can see the huge cable, what do you call it? A cable machine? Oh, yes, cable coiler with lots of old cogs. It's a really cool thing from the past. So of course we're gonna take a closer look. Yeah, this is a museum piece taken from elsewhere. It's okay. Yeah, I see. It's most likely related to some sort of heavy cable machinery. And over here we have an old manor of sorts, a villa you could say, that is used now for can be used to host parties and such. It's also a museum piece, and it's apparently from 1740. Now that's old. You can tell it also was very expensive due to the workmanship that went into the pillars and the arches. Cultural cafe. Happiness and pleasure. Originally belonged to Hanstein Gård and the Gard. Most likely the oldest building around. Can have building remains from the medieval times. Was used as a courthouse in 1536. It's a guest house with alcohol serving. So yeah, it's a really beautiful place and very old. So it means that people have been around here for a very long time. And here you can get a shot of the entrance. And it's just as opulent, you could say. And of course it also has a beautiful stone fence that is overgrown with moss and bracken. And if you keep going up this hill, you will come to another festivity manor where they had some dance courses at some point. Was too embarrassed to do that, but that thing is covered in a blanket now and being fixed, it seems. So we are going to just ignore that for now. And here we get into the modern concrete monstrosities. Yes, we are now going into modern cold concrete and rebar construction with glass wherever it fits. So it's an interesting contrast to the place you can see over here. It's clearly very beautifully ornate from what, 1800s or so. But then again, I'm not sure how you're supposed to build these sort of structures without using concrete and stone. Actually, concrete is a derivative of stone. So I suppose the thing is rather, how can you build such a place without build such buildings on this scale without these materials. And yeah, since we're now getting down to the another dock area, an industrialized street, and more silos are popping up from the ground. But there's still that influence of the old and the new. Mostly the old due to these buildings being very convenient. And having a nice lot to stay on. And you have to pay premium price to have your own house this size and have a garden. Oh, there's a wall hanging lamp and an overhang. Oh yeah, speaking of industrial. Oh wait, that machinery you saw back there is probably just from a crane. Yeah, that would make sense. No, this thing is still in use, but yeah, here's one of those old house-style cranes where the machinery is in the back and the control is in the front. Now here is a level design and a half as well. I mean, look at this thing. You have staircases, doors, you have a crane, you have pieces of, you have repositories of gravel. So what? Could somehow walk up here and mess around, get up to the top, collect something, then go in here and yeah, you know what? I can use it as a level design or a set piece for my story, yes. Actually I will. I will. This is another reason why I'm doing these walks and taking pictures and photos. But I have a plan. And the visual inspiration is very important. And here we have more concrete. And apparently use an old fence on the inside to keep it in place. It didn't seem to do its purpose very well, now did it? So we're just gonna keep going a bit more further. As I have a plan today, but I need to get there. Stolz. Damsgårds road. Damsgårdsveien. Because in Norway we need to have 3 extra letters for no other reason than because we can. Maritime boat equipment. So yeah, I can tell that once structure and construction became more modern, it became a lot more rigid and angular. A bit more set in stone. Nothing wrong with that, but yeah, this building is not as visually interesting as this building, even though that one has clearly been fixed at some point, but they removed what made it interesting in the first place. Oh, here's an old camping wagon. Ooh, one of those old shag carpet thingies would fit in there. And the mystery and mystery people from Scooby-Doo, whatever they call themselves again. So yeah, that's should be it for now. I'm Jarl, signing out, and stay tuned for more street walking. It's good for the health, good for the mind, and it's fun to see what I can spot when I'm going through town.